writing. The moment the security alarm screamed through the luxury showroom, every head turned toward the single-dad mechanic standing beside a $200 million hypercar. For one terrifying second, the entire building froze. The polished marble floors reflected the flashing red lights. Wealthy clients stepped back. Executives rushed from their offices. Security guards moved toward the mechanic as if he were a criminal caught in the act. And there he stood, the grease stains on his sleeves, a worn toolbox at his feet, and one hand resting lightly on the world's rarest automobile. 5 minutes later, the same woman who fired him would be begging him to come back. But before we get into this emotional story, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that remind us never to judge people by appearances. Ethan Carter had spent most of his life fixing things. Engines, transmissions, broken electrical systems. If it had wheels and a problem, he could solve it. Yet no matter how skilled he was, life had never been easy. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Since then, every day had become a balancing act between earning enough money to survive and being present for the little girl who depended on him. Most mornings began before sunrise. He would wake up, prepare Lily's breakfast, help her get ready for school, and then rush to work. After long shifts, he would return home exhausted but still find the energy to help with homework, cook dinner, and read bedtime stories. Money was always tight. The rent kept rising. School expenses never seemed to end. Sometimes Ethan skipped meals so Lily could have something extra in her lunchbox. Yet he never complained. Because every time he looked at his daughter, he remembered why he kept going. When a prestigious luxury automotive company announced they were hiring mechanics for their elite restoration division, Ethan saw an opportunity. The position paid nearly twice what he currently earned. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope. The company specialized in some of the rarest vehicles on Earth. Billionaires shipped their prized collections from around the world to be serviced there. Getting hired would change everything. After multiple interviews and technical evaluations, Ethan got the job. It felt like a miracle. The facility looked more like a museum than a garage. Exotic vehicles worth millions sat beneath bright lights. Every employee wore immaculate uniforms. Every movement followed strict protocols. Despite feeling out of place, Ethan quickly proved himself. His technical knowledge amazed everyone. Problems that baffled other mechanics often took him only minutes to diagnose. Complex systems that required lengthy inspections seemed obvious to him. But while his skills earned respect from fellow workers, management viewed him differently. The company's operations director, Victoria Langford, cared deeply about image. Everything had to appear perfect. Perfect facilities. Perfect employees. Perfect reputation. To Victoria, Ethan looked like someone who didn't belong. His boots showed signs of wear. His truck was 15 years old. His lunches were packed in reusable containers. And unlike many employees who came from prestigious backgrounds, Ethan never tried to impress anyone. He simply worked. For months, he ignored the subtle judgments. He focused on his daughter and his responsibilities. Then came the day everything changed. A historic event had been organized at the facility. One of the world's rarest hypercars had arrived for a private showcase. The vehicle was valued at nearly $200 million. Only a handful existed. Collectors had traveled from several countries just to see it. Security around the car was extraordinary. Employees received strict instructions. No one was allowed to touch the vehicle without authorization. No exceptions. As guests arrived, Ethan walked quietly in another section of the facility. Then something caught his attention. A faint sound. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. It lasted less than a second. A tiny metallic vibration. But years of experience had trained his ears. Something wasn't right. Ethan looked toward the hypercar. The sound came again. Very subtle. Very unusual. His instincts immediately activated. He walked closer. The car sat under bright lights while wealthy guests admired its beauty. Again he heard the sound. This time he recognized it. A high-pressure component inside the cooling system was under stress. If it failed, catastrophic damage could occur. And because the engine had recently been transported internationally, the risk was even greater. Ethan knew he needed to verify his suspicion. Unfortunately, that required getting closer. Very carefully, he approached the vehicle. His eyes studied the body panels. His attention focused entirely on the machine. He gently placed his hand against a specific section near the rear compartment. The vibration confirmed his fear. Something inside was about to fail. Before he could alert anyone, alarms suddenly erupted throughout the showroom. The security system had detected unauthorized contact. Everyone turned. Gasps echoed across the room. Victoria Langford's face turned red with fury. Within seconds, security guards surrounded Ethan. The crowd watched silently. Many assumed the worst. A poor mechanic had touched a priceless hypercar. To them, it looked reckless, irresponsible, unprofessional. Victoria marched across the showroom. Her voice carried through the entire building. Without asking questions. Without hearing explanations. Without investigating. She terminated Ethan on the spot. Months of hard work disappeared in seconds. Employees stared helplessly. Some wanted to defend him. None dared challenge management. Ethan stood quietly. Humiliation washed over him. He thought about Lily. The rent. The bills. The future he had worked so hard to build. But even then, he remained calm. Because he knew something everyone else didn't. The car was in danger. As security escorted him toward the exit, he tried to explain. Nobody listened. Then the sound came again. Louder. This time a few engineers heard it. Confusion spread. Suddenly, a senior specialist rushed toward the vehicle. His face went pale. He dropped to one knee and began inspecting the exact area Ethan had touched. Within moments, panic replaced arrogance. The specialist shouted for emergency shutdown procedures. Technicians scrambled. Guests stepped back. Victoria's confidence vanished. The hidden component Ethan had identified was indeed failing. If it ruptured, the damage could have reached tens of millions of dollars. Worse still, nearby spectators could have been injured. The entire event descended into controlled chaos. Experts gathered around the hypercar. Nobody knew how to access the component quickly enough. Time was running out. The specialist finally looked toward the exit. Toward Ethan. And in a voice filled with urgency, he asked the question nobody expected. Where's the mechanic? 5 minutes earlier, Ethan had been fired. Now the room desperately needed him. Victoria's expression changed completely. Reality had struck. The man she judged by his appearance had seen a problem that dozens of highly paid experts missed. Security stopped escorting him. Several executives hurried after him. Victoria herself approached. For the first time, she truly looked at Ethan. Not his clothes. Not his truck. Not his social status. Him. She realized she had never bothered to understand who he was. The years of experience. The sacrifices. The knowledge earned through countless long nights repairing engines while balancing fatherhood. With genuine desperation, she asked him to return. The entire facility waited. Ethan could have walked away. Many people would have. After all, he had been humiliated in front of everyone. But Ethan thought about something his late wife used to tell him. Character isn't measured by how people treat you. It's measured by how you respond when they don't. So he turned around. He returned to the hypercar. The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes followed him. Experts stepped aside. Collectors watched nervously. Victoria stood frozen. Ethan examined the vehicle carefully. Within minutes he identified the exact failure point. The solution wasn't easy, but it was possible. Working methodically, he guided technicians through a complex emergency repair procedure. Every movement was precise. Every instruction clear. Nearly an hour later, the danger was gone. The hypercar was safe. The crowd erupted into applause. Not because a car had been saved. Because they had witnessed something remarkable. True expertise. True professionalism. True humility. The owner of the hypercar personally thanked Ethan. Several wealthy collectors requested his services. Executives who had barely acknowledged him before suddenly wanted his opinion. But the most meaningful moment came later. Victoria invited Ethan into her office. This time there were no assumptions. No judgments. Only honesty. She admitted her mistake. She confessed that she had allowed appearances to influence her decisions. She apologized sincerely. Then she offered him his job back along with a significant promotion. Ethan listened quietly. The offer was generous. Life-changing, even. Yet what mattered most wasn't the money. It was the respect. For the first time since joining the company, he felt seen. Not as a single father struggling to get by. Not as a mechanic in worn boots. But as a skilled professional whose value couldn't be measured by appearances. He accepted. Over the following months, Ethan became one of the company's most respected leaders. Young mechanics sought his guidance. Veteran engineers valued his insight. The culture of the workplace slowly changed. People became less focused on status and more focused on character. Victoria herself often shared Ethan's story with new employees. Not as a tale about cars, but as a lesson about people. Because talent doesn't always wear expensive suits. Wisdom doesn't always arrive in luxury vehicles. And heroes don't always look the way we expect. One evening, months later, Ethan returned home carrying exciting news. Lily sat at the kitchen table doing homework. When he told her about his promotion, tears filled her eyes. Then she wrapped her arms around him. In that simple embrace, every sacrifice suddenly felt worthwhile. Every early morning. Every sleepless night. Every difficult moment. They had made it through together. And as Ethan looked around their small home, he realized something important. The greatest achievement of his life wasn't saving a $200 million hypercar. It wasn't earning promotions or recognition. It was becoming the kind of father his daughter could believe in. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Comment below, character matters more than appearances, if you believe people deserve to be judged by their actions, not by how they look. Years later, employees still talked about the day the single dad mechanic was fired for touching a hypercar. But that wasn't the part they remembered most. They remembered what happened 5 minutes later. The moment everyone realized that true value cannot be measured by wealth, titles, or appearances. Sometimes the person standing quietly in the background is the one holding the knowledge that can save the day. Sometimes the strongest people are carrying burdens nobody can see. And sometimes all it takes is one mistake, one lesson, one moment of humility to remind us that every person deserves respect. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more inspiring stories reach people around the world. Because kindness costs nothing, second chances change lives, and the people we underestimate today may become the heroes we depend on tomorrow. And that is exactly what happened to the single dad mechanic who lost everything for touching a hypercar, only to prove, 5 minutes later, that he was the one person everyone should have trusted from the very beginning.